Hello, my name is Evan Sirianni, and for our final project, I decided to look at professional communication in the wildlife biology field. I reached out to three different wildlife biologists in the area and did three separate interviews, asking how it involves their day-to-day life being wildlife biologists and the different tasks that come with that. So I reached out to Mr. Charette, who is from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Mark Rasmussen, who is from Trempealeau County, along with Jeb Hopp, who is a wildlife biologist in Pierce County. All three of them had pretty common and similar responses, and I'll go over those in a little bit. But I'll give you guys a brief overview of my flyer here. So the three main topics I focused on was the phone communication, emailing, along with some other communication in wildlife biology, such as reading and listening, things like that. So we'll start with the phone communication. Some of the statistics that I found for this I found very relevant, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So one of them was like an overwhelming majority of customers say they'd rather have human interactions than like a self-service or like a bot when they're talking on the phone. And then along with that, being concise and quick with your phone communication is also very important when talking to customers, because that is a top frustration that customers have when people are not being clear and quick with their responses over the phone. So from Terrence Sharp, I had a little quote here. When it comes to communicating with people in the general public, that is largely done over the phone. I receive many phone calls about issues that people are having in wildlife or just general questions. So when I get these calls, I strive to get the very best customer service that I can, because that's what members are to the public, are to the DNR, our customers. So it applies in this field mainly because a lot of the projects and, in that case, issues that people come to the DNR or more specifically wildlife biologists with, you need to understand where they're coming from and be quick and concise with how you need to respond to that, so you can get back out in the field and help your people. So next, I looked at emailing. According to Jeb and Mr. Rasmussen, they both put an emphasis that emailing is a very important part of this field. So some of the statistics that I looked at, just like the overarching 281 billion emails being sent each day, and then an increase to 347 billion per day by 2023, which is pretty amazing to me. So you need to be able to pump out emails quite consistently, no matter where you are in whatever field. So I took Mark Rasmussen's response on emailing for this one. He gave me the tips of a formal email is intended for reports or updates to like upper management and to new landowners, groups, or organizations. You want to be as formal as possible, sound like you know what you're talking about, because you are, and be upfront with that. So, and then with upper management, you need to be formal, but you can also use terms, lingos, and acronyms that people in the field will understand. Landowners, groups, and organizations, you need to be clear and concise and use understandable terminology. Sometimes you might have to explain in a little bit more detail what something means compared to talking to upper management. They will know what you're talking about. You also want to sound like a human being, not necessarily a government worker when talking to landowners, groups, and organizations. This is because, as Terrence talked about up top, they are your customers, and you want to sound like an actual human being to them and not just a robot trying to get their land or their money and take all that things that they own. So you want to be sounding like their neighbor, being very gentle and clear with them with that too. So my last topic that I looked at was some other communication in wildlife biology. Both Terrence and Mark really gave some very good advice, not necessarily on just emails and phone, but communication as a whole. So one of the statistics that I really liked was just really what comprises our communication. And surprisingly enough, listening is a good majority, like 45%, compared to speaking or writing, which is 30 and 9% respectively. So listening, proposal and grant writing, leadership, conflict awareness skills are also very important aspects, aside from the emails and phone communication in this field. So going off what Terrence had here, communication from both listening and expressing ideas are critical for communicating with a colleague or public. Just being an understandable listener and expressing your ideas and not holding back is important to get to the final conclusion of whether you need to do a project or you need to spend your budget on something else. Soft skills such as leadership and conflict awareness skills are really just as important as the technical skills in this field. Being able to have that leadership and get things done and understand if you're not in the right with a customer, and being aware and being able to overcome that situation and get both needs being met from both the wildlife standpoint and the customer's point is very important. And going off of Mark, so friendly communication with the public is critical because there are people that that do the work for you. So being a friend and not a government worker is important. Kind of like what I was talking about a little bit earlier, just being more of a neighbor than a government worker. Grant and proposal writing is also key in the technical writing part of the field. A lot of the important aspects that he explained were the formality of it, and very thorough and descriptive, and understanding what they're looking for. A lot of the times he said that they will give you pinpoints of what they need and what they want, and you go off of those, and you need to be as descriptive as possible with that. So with that being said, they also gave me some good advice for the future in these career fields. So, let me find it here. So Mark, he gave a lot of ideas about how to get more involved with the wildlife biology community, just getting more involved with the DNR in general. So you can start with a lower level job, such as working at a park or just volunteering at events and getting to know people and getting ins and outs of people as well. So getting your name out there is very critical when going into the wildlife biology field. And getting things such as your chainsaw certification or just using common tools that they would use in the field, getting familiar with the animal, tree, all sorts of species is also critical for that as well. So going off of that, I'm going to now move on to the layout of my demographic. So going off kind of a wildlife theme, I thought that the green would go well, and I wanted to keep the pictures kind of to a minimal, keep it very minimalistic, because I want the main focus to be on the quotes and the information from the actual wildlife biologist, because I feel that's the most important part of this. And yeah, that's all I have, so thank you for listening.